You're back. I can't believe it. You made me do that emotional goodbye and then poof, you were back up again.
Well, thank you for that. Much appreciated.
I listened through that whole show and you were on the brink of crying all the time and then bam. And now you're my tea time radio in Wales. It's amazing. It's a great show, Jan.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Well, do you know, it's great.
You're getting some good guests as well. I'm not on about myself, I'm more about other people.
Case in point, who am I talking to now?
No, but yeah, because I got a couple of mates that were at BBC in Cardiff, or Llandaff, and they were just like saying the best, they were like best signing in the kind of like in the autumn transfer window ever. You know, they made the sport analogy. It's like the best signing ever.
Oh, thank you. You say the nicest things. And I don't know what you were saying on Absolute Radio, but people were getting in touch with me going, James Dean Bradfield's been talking about you. So I sent a message. Apparently.
What did I say? Oh, I'm at that age where I can't remember what I've said anymore. Oh no,
well,
I think
I don't need to know.
No, I think I was on about. For me, the golden age of radio was like when it used to be, you know, it used to be the kid into you, then into John kind of thing. That was our golden age for me. It was Kid Jensen into Janice Long, you know, into kind of like, you know, into John Peel. And that was my favourite period of radio because I was 17, 16 then, I think. And you used to play amazing old sessions.
Yeah.
You know, I think I remember you introducing the Cult, and you used to say, I remember you just going, some people say that, you know, Bruce Springsteen is still the future of rock and roll, but I say that the Cult are the future of rock and roll. And then you played It's a Revolution by the Cult. So it was one of those dramatic radio moments, you know.
Gosh. Well, congratulations on the album.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I love it. From the second, you know, it opens with Distant Colours, to that last track, which shocks me because that's quite different, The Left Behind.
It is, yeah. I mean, that was one of the first tracks we started working on for the record. And first of all, it felt like it could be like a Nicky solo kind of project because it's one of his songs in its entirety. I only play guitar on it. So it was really bizarre that that was one of the last songs we recorded at our old studio, Faster Studios in Cardiff. Yeah. And then we lost that studio to Urban Progress, the building of flats. And then we had to move studios over to Newport Way in South Wales. And by the time we'd finished the record, we knew that the last track we'd started at the old studios was going to be the last track on the album, because it feels like a natural album closer. So yeah, it's got a certain sense of fatalistic calm about it, I think.
And once again, you deal with all kinds of topics. By the way, resistance is futile. Is that because you're a Star Trek fan?
I was when I was young, but I'm not a Trekkie. I'm not a Trekkie by any far stretch of the imagination.
Oh, because the Borg. Lower your shields and surrender your ships. Resistance is futile.
No, I loved Star Trek when I was a kid and stuff, but no, I'm not a Trekkie. I'm more of a Blade Runner man myself, to be honest.
Well, I was saying to Paul, my husband, I was saying, do you think they're Trekkies? And he went, resistance is futile. So many people have said that over the years. It's not just, you know, the Borg. What does widescreen melancholia mean?
Well, we have a breadth of experience, and a lot of that is angst-ridden and existential, it must be said. I mean, we're all around about, well, I'm 49, Sean is 50 this year, Nicky is 49 too. I think it's very strange for a band to go, you know, to start releasing records in 1990 and to still be releasing records now in 2018. You know, this is our 13th album. And I think inevitably the thing that you go through, apart from all the ephemera of being in the band, is that you get to see everything change. You get to see the music industry change. You get to see general culture change. You get to see cities around Britain just change before your eyes. You know, Manchester, Cardiff, Birmingham, you know, all these cities have just changed in front of our eyes, you know, from the early 90s, from when we were first touring. And then I think, you know, we live in an era of the most rapid acceleration of the distension of everything you've ever known, whether it be, you know, the way you digest music, the way you digest culture, the way that people work in, you know, the flexibility of life itself. Just clothes shops closing down, New Look closing down, wherever it might be.
Toys R Us.
Yeah, every day there's a signpost from the early 90s that has just gone forever. And we're just glad it's not us. But I think, you know, you've got to start actually just taking all that in. You've got to start actually trying to discern between what is memory and what is reality. And you've got to start trying to discern as to whether you're getting left behind or whether you're just being bitter or whether you're just confused. All those things, if you've been in the band this long, you'd be silly not to address it, I think. So that's what's meant by widestream melancholia, I think.
Change, as you say, it's so rapid at the moment.
It is, yeah. And I think everything is just quite intractable. I mean, point in case, I think it's no accident that this album is post-Trump, it's post-referendum, it's post-general election, it's post many things. And I think it all reached a head with the referendum where the kind of even political ley lines were just absolutely and utterly just like dissolved and just all muddled up. When people from the same side, whether it be centre left, to the left, hard left, or people what you called, One Nation Tories or soft Tories or left-leaning Tories or whatever, even people on the same side were arguing. There were such bitter divisions, on traditional Labour voting that you finally realise that everything had reached an apex of just everything just being dissembled and just mixed up. So it is the album has come out of the back of all those events, and just tried to make sense of it, I think.
I was chairing a panel last week, and there were various people from AIM or from UK research or music people, and the ramifications of Brexit for the music industry are unbelievable, aren't they?
I think so. Well, it changes things. I think I'm in a slightly odd position of... I remember what border checks are like because I've been in the band for so long. So I sometimes border checks used to be exciting. I tend not to look at that so much. I tend not to look to things as a barrier. There are philosophical reasons for being upset about Brexit, which I think a lot of people latch on to. There are hard copy political reasons to be upset about it too. But I think I'm not so existential about how it's going to affect music. I think the bottom line is that you've really got to immerse yourself in. If you really want to believe in your music, you've just got to immerse yourself in it first and not worry about what's going on around you. If we would have worried about what was going on around us, which was nothing, we lived in a rock and roll vacuum in South Wales in the mid-'80s, but we decided to be in a band and nothing was going to stop us. I think you've got to start from that standpoint, really.
Now, how do you decide who to have as guest vocalists? I always wonder, because, for example, you've had Nina from the Cardigans, Ian McCulloch, of course, and now the wonderful the anchoress on Dylan and Caitlin. Why did you pick her? Why did you pick Ian McCulloch? Why did you pick Nina?
When you're writing a song, you kind of hear what you think the song is going to sound like eventually in your head. Even when you're just writing it there at 2 o'clock in the morning on your own, you kind of have you have this diagram, this sense of what it's going to be like in your head. And it's the same with a guest vocalist if it's written as a duet. And all these songs have started naturally as duets, whether it be Your Love Alone Is Not Enough or Little Baby Nothing with Tracy Lords.
Oh, yeah.
Or Some Kind of Nothingness with Ian McCulloch. You have a sense. Now, sometimes, like a song like Little Baby Nothing with Tracy Lords, there was a concept there, obviously, because the character in the song was trying to overcome being put in a position where kind of she felt as if she was being mistreated and undervalued. You couldn't appropriate that with a male vocalist. You needed a vocalist who had some of that experience to sing the lyric, and thankfully she agreed. So that was a conceptual thing. But with something like Dylan and Caitlin with the anchoress, with Catherine, we just heard her voice doing it because we know her record. We obviously like her. She's been on stage with us and sang Little Baby Nothing with us before. And we just knew she'd bring a bit of Chrissy Hine to it, without saying that she sounds like it. She'd bring a bit of huskiness to it. She would ground the hysterical kind of Dylan part, which is me, and she would ground it, with a bit of huskiness, which is great, And then with Your Love Alone, we just knew that Nina's voice was going to work on it. We just knew it, as musicians, we just knew it. And mostly, whenever we've asked somebody to do a vocal with us, they've said yes. I think the most interesting experience was getting Mac to do, Some Kind of Nothingness. It was a long day in the studio because he had a couple of jars before he got there.
Really?
But really. But it was a great experience too. It was amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a bit of an Elton and Kiki moment.
Oh, that's one of my favourite records from my youth. I
really?
Really had. Oh, God.
1976, it was number one forever.
It was amazing. And Kiki D's dungarees in the video, God, I had such a crush on her. I kind of she was wearing, it was the first time I saw a woman, except for perhaps Play School, presenter wearing dungarees. And suddenly Kiki D was wearing them and it was just like, gosh, she looks stunning. But it's an amazing record. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it was 1976 and we had that incredibly hot summer.
Yes, it was. And it would, like you said, it seemed like it was number one forever.
It
really
I think
did.
it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's take a listen to Dylan and Caitlin. Dylan and Caitlin by the Manic Street Preachers. I mean, they really had a crazy relationship, didn't they, Dylan Thomas and Caitlin McNamara?
It did, yeah. It's kind of an awkward position to take a lyrical stance from because obviously, you know, there's two distinct voices, you know, within two distinct narratives within the song with Dylan and Caitlin. And it was a co-abusive relationship. If as much as I've read about it, which is lots, it was a co-abusive relationship. It was one of those things where you just had the sense that those two people needed that sense of drama to operate. Yeah. They thrived off it. I'm not saying that's right, you know. I'm not even saying it's wrong. It's just kind of weird, isn't it? It's kind of just to actually need that, to live off it, to suck the life out of each other, but to kind of strangely enjoy it. To their detriment by the end, obviously. And obviously Dylan's work fed off it. And some people say that Caitlin's work suffered from it. But, you know, it was definitely at points where they just egged each other on. You know, they just knew how to press each other's buttons and kind of needed it. So it's an unfashionable way to look at a relationship, but it was definitely co-abusive, I think.
Do you know, I absolutely love public service broadcasting. I gave them their first playing session and had the pleasure to actually work with them because they did that gig after they did the album Every Valley. And you're on that album, aren't you?
Yeah, I did, yeah. I mean, I went and did the vocal...
Turn No More.
John called me. Yeah, and I did it at Never Vale kind of thing. I think there's one thing about PSP that people don't realise, you know, they really are a DIY band. You know, the first time they ever supported us about 5 years ago, you know, they brought their little stage set and they just set it up themselves.
Brilliant,
you know, and then kind of like, and they just almost seemed like a Arctic Explorer, you know, Scott of the Antarctic kind of like class, you know, those kind of English chaps that would have gone to the Arctic and just sorted it out, you know.
Yeah.
But it's
Wrigglesworth to the Arctic.
Yeah, it is. Smoke me a kipper for my return. But it's amazing to see the journey they've taken, you know, when they used to bring their little sets on stage when they were supporting us. And then I went over to see them in Bristol Colston Hall late last year. And suddenly, you know, they're playing Colston Hall on their own. The audience there absolutely adore them. And now they've got this big stage set, which is much too big for them to set up on their own. And it's amazing to see how they did it the old-fashioned way. They really did. You know, they just kept gigging, kept doing it their own way, kept just like, you know, scrimping and saving and just putting these sets up until they got to the point where they couldn't do it themselves anymore and had to concentrate on the records. And I think it's really unfashionable to immerse yourself in a subject like they do. I'm not having to go at young musicians because I think it's really harder for young musicians now to actually be as focused. But, you know, when your band starts now, within 2 months of starting a band, you know, the two members of a band have always got another project going on the side.
Yes.
Whereas, you know, I think PSP stood for that old-fashioned immersion of just being obsessed with what you do and nothing else. Yeah. You know, they just want that band to succeed. And they did it the old-fashioned way, and they're reaping the rewards now, you know. And it's amazing to see that they've taken a bit more of a lyrical narrative within their music now. Obviously, you know, with the last album. So kind of, you know, they're actually changing a bit as well, and they gave themselves so much room to change and just to morph into something which is going to be amazing still, you know.
What a lovely thing to say about them. Absolutely great. Now, I have the pleasure of going to Cardiff quite a bit these days, and I do keep an eye out for you because people say, oh, you'll bump into James Dean Bradfield, he's always around.
I am a frequenter of cafes, yes. I do like cafes.
Well, I'm a frequenter of I do actually. There's a really good one in one of the arcades, and I can't remember the name of it, but Spillers and Kelly's in the market. Love going there.
Yes, Kelly's.
I love going to Clancy's, where I get the Merthyr Furka chili of the valley.
Well, also there's Madame Fromage. You go in there?
Yes.
Good soups in there. No, that's good in there. It's lovely. Then you have the Hayes Island snack bar. Still does a good, like a kind of pulled pork sandwich. Yeah. You know, I'm not going to give away too many of my Cardiff secrets.
Well, I'll be stalking you now. You shouldn't have told me all of
No, it's kind of like... And then if you want a posher sandwich, there's Waterloo Gardens. And I forgot the name. In the Morgan Arcade, I think.
Yes,
so,
I think that's the one, yeah.
Yeah, we're doing a bit of a tourist board thing, you know. I think we should stop until we get some money for it, I think.
And another thing I really must ask you, did you ever find that Ellery Bop record?
No, didn't get it. And obviously it was on the, what was the label? The Corova label, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I never found it, no. Never found it.
Escape from History.
Yes. Obviously, it was a documentary about, kind of the making of Everything Must Go, because obviously it's inescapable to actually describe the making of Everything Must Go without describing what we had gone through with the disappearance of Richey. I don't really believe in closure or catharsis, but it was the closest I've been to a cathartic experience about talking about that era. And Kieran Evans, who won a BAFTA 4 years ago with his film Kelly and Victor, he did it, and he's done a lot of visuals in the new tour, etc. Him and Nick especially have an amazing relationship, because all the videos in this record have been done as a team, you know. And Nick was very much involved in Escape the History, trying to frame it as well. So it's just a relief that when Nick finds somebody that you can actually work with as a partner, and him and Kieran just have an amazing sense of being able to understand each other and just being able to add to each other's ideas. And it was, like I said, I don't believe in that American notion of getting emotional closure, but there was something about doing Escape the History with Kieran which was made us see things a bit straighter, I suppose.
Now, I'm really cheesed off because I would love to go and see you in Llandudno, but I'm at work that night because you're going on tour with... is Coral doing all of the dates?
Yeah, Coral doing all the dates.
Great.
Yes, they are. Yes, it is. It's going to be cool.
And then you go to Europe for some dates with Guns N' Roses. You'll blow them off the stage.
No, we will not. No. It's strange, obviously we famously said at the start that we wanted to sell more records than Guns N' Roses. But no, we're supporting them. Here's the press release right there. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with music. I was obsessed with Elvis from my mum, obsessed with Frank Sinatra. Then it became like a massive Motown fan, then a massive, really obscure indie fan. That was partly your fault, Janice. And then it was and then just massive punk fan, and then and then Appetite for Destruction landed on my doorstep, in 1987, and I just love that record because they seemed to reinfuse rock music with a bit of roll again. They had that kind of slightly Stonesy ethic about them.
Yeah.
And just like, it was weird, that 2 year period, 87, 88, I was just obsessed with two records, Taking Nation of Millions by Public Enemy and Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses. Two completely opposed records.
Yes.
But it was such an amazing 2 years for me to be obsessed with those records. I just didn't stop listening to them. So I'm a genuine, absolute, just mega fan of Guns N' Roses. And
have you met any of them?
I've met Duff McKagan a couple of times, and he's a complete rock and roll gent. Whenever I've met him, it's a bit like watching Chewbacca trying to give R2-D2 a cuddle, because he's so tall and I'm so short, kind of thing. And he's a dude, he's a real dude, kind of thing. So we are just really excited about it.
Now, Liverpool Revisited, I think I know what this is about.
Yeah, this song is a complete Nicky Wire song. We were playing the Echo Arena in Liverpool on the Everything Must Go reissue tour, and obviously we'd got the news through about Justice for the Victims of Hillsborough campaign. They'd finally got that ruling. And then we were playing Liverpool very shortly after, and we'd like a lot of people, not just us, like a lot of people, we'd stayed on the fringes of that campaign and then stayed in contact. And then lots of the families would come in that night because we made the tickets free and all that. And we were there for a day before the gig, and I think Nick had taken a walk down on the waterfront, and he said, Nick's got this theory about Liverpool. He says, the waterfront by the Mersey, with the City Hall and stuff, he says it can be really psychedelic, kind of like a certain parts of the year when the sun's shining on the Mersey, you get that beautiful evening sun. And he'd had a magical day just walking down there, and he'd started this poem. And then we did the gig, and it was emotional when lots of the families turned up and were in the crowd, and they got their banner out and they gave us our badges. I mean, I think Nicky was just struck by the fact that there are not many times in British civic history where somebody fights a battle for that long and wins against the entire establishment.
With dignity.
With dignity as well. They took on the whole establishment, and it went. Listen, obviously, we know how long that battle went on for, and they won. And that's a very rare thing in British history. And we're not talking about men or women or adult. We're talking about just families, just people.
Yeah.
So the song was about those 2 days and just how it felt to be around that.
Well, it's very, very powerful. But I'd like to say, James Dean Bradfield, thank you very, very much indeed for your time.
It's a pleasure.
And congrats on the album, Resistance is Futile. You take care of yourself.
Good. Congratulations on the new show. Welcome to Wales. Best signing of last year.